Good evening and welcome to the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization's eTownHall. Let's talk transportation. I'm Jade Alexander, your moderator for tonight's discussion, and we thank you so much for joining us. Investing in our future. Who can argue with that, right? It's what we choose to invest in and where the money comes from that creates the challenges. Tonight, we have four folks who know all about making tough decisions, and we're going to talk with them about investing in our transportation future at both the local and national level. Speak Up Broward is about finding out what's important to you. Are you willing to pay more for an improved transportation system? And if not, who do you think should pay for it? Speak Up Broward is an ongoing effort, and the comments and suggestions that you offer tonight will help shape the future and the funding for a competitive, affordable, and reliable transportation system. And as a way of thanking you for taking time out of your day by bringing your thoughts, questions, and comments to the table, we are offering you a chance at winning a $500 prize by completing the survey that you'll find at speakupbroward.org, but you've got to complete it by October 24th. Now, if you're on the phone and would like to ask a question, very easy. All you do is press 0 at any time. You can also dial the toll-free number on your screen and press 0 if you have a question. You can also participate in our live online chat, and you do that by going to speakupbroward.org. All right, let's introduce our panelists for tonight. Joining us, we have Congresswoman Lois Frankel, U.S. Representative for Florida's 22nd District. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Next is Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, U.S. Representative for Florida's 23rd District. Haven't seen you in a long time.
It's been a long time. Good to see you.
Looking good.
Thanks. You too, Jade.
We also have Mayor of Broward County, a member of the Broward MPO, Barbara Sharief.
Thank you.
And rounding out our panel tonight is Hollywood City Commissioner and Chair of the Broward MPO, the boss, Richard Blattner. How are you?
Thank you.
All right, now remember, if you're joining us by phone, you got a question, just press 0 at any time. But we're going to get straight to our first question. We've got two representatives from the Broward MPO with us this evening, Mayor Sharief and Commissioner Blattner. Since we probably have some folks that are joining us unfamiliar with who and what the MPO is, could either one of you, Commissioner Blattner, the mayor, tell us a little bit more about what is MPO?
Commissioner Blattner.
Well, good. Thank you. The MPO is an independent organization where Broward's 31 cities are represented on our council. We're independent of Broward County, but we support the activities in transportation and transit for Broward County. Our function is to help plan for what Broward County transportation system should look like today and tomorrow. And the significance of that is that this forum we're in today is really devoted to where do we go from here. We know where we are. How do we get to where we want to be?
Anything you'd like to add, Mayor?
I would just like to say that in collaboration with MPO, Broward County Transit, make sure that we're addressing all of the issues that are facing our community, such as east-west transportation, north-south transportation, express lanes, express buses. And so we work in collaboration with FDOT and the MPO to accomplish that.
We have an online question here. Anyone can take it, whoever feels they've got the answer. Why is there currently not enough money for transportation? Why are we looking for resources?
Jade, I'll take a crack at that. I sit on the House Committee on Appropriations and have since 2007. During that time, for a couple of years when, I'm going to do my best not to be partisan, but just sort of lay out the facts here. When Democrats were in the majority, we were appropriating the funds necessary, in addition to the Highway Trust Fund being funded by the gas tax, in order to be able to keep up with our transportation needs. In 2010, and since then, with the Republican majority, unfortunately, they have chosen to dramatically cut back on appropriating funds towards transportation projects. And for example, the Tiger Grant program in the House of Representatives, they have consistently zeroed out Tiger Grant funding, whereas the Senate has provided most of the necessary funds. There are $2 billion in needs in Tiger Grant projects, and for example, the House Republican appropriators have only provided in their budget $100 million, and so obviously that's a huge gap. So it's a combination of both declining tax revenues as well as a lack of will in Washington to appropriate the necessary dollars. And my colleague, Congresswoman Frankel, sits on the Transportation Committee. I'm sure that she could add quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to this. We have primarily relied on the Highway Trust Fund the gasoline tax to fund the Highway Trust Fund. So a couple of things have happened. When we went into a recession, people stopped using their cars as much, less travel, less work, so people were traveling to work less vacations, so less use of gasoline, less revenue, number one. Number two, cars, you can now drive you can drive much further in your car now with 1 gallon of gasoline, and so you're actually buying less gasoline to move your car. So those are two big factors which have reduced the trust fund. And then there's a political factor, which is a lack of will right now in Congress to fund it.
And if I may, in addition to what you said, both Congress people, Broward County's population has increased, putting more and more demand on our roads and our transportation system. And the MPO, with the concurrence of, I think, the Department of Transportation, anybody who's studied this has realized that we can't build any more roads. Their roads are as wide as they're going to be, they're as long as they're going to be, and that transit becomes a more important part of the equation of how we move people from one place to the other. And transit costs an awful lot of money. Now, Barbara, you could probably tell us, but I think it probably cost $250,000 just to buy a bus.
That's almost right, almost on the dollar. And one of the other things I wanted to add to that discussion is that, when we're talking about federal funding, we're talking about funding from the state for transportation, we can't forget that primarily the funding for our transportation is paid through the fare box recovery, as well as the gas tax and the property taxes. And what we're looking at in Broward County is that we're going to have a projected in 10 years a $382 million deficit because the gas tax revenue is not growing, property taxes are just coming back, and so we're not seeing that increase that we need to maintain the bus service, to add new routes, to make it more efficient, and just to repair what needs to be repaired and restored. And so we're looking at a shortfall over the next 10 years if we do not come up with a good funding source of about $382 million.
Now remember, if you're just joining us by phone and you'd like to ask a question, press 0 at any time. You can also ask a question via our online chat by going to speakupbroward.org. Congresswoman Frankel, there's been a lot of talk here about expanding the ports in South Florida so they can accept larger ships. This is something that's come in as well as a question. How much is the public paying for these improvements?
Well, specifically for Port Everglades, it's going to cost somewhere between about 300 million, 350 million. Depends how deep we get to go.
48 plus 1 plus
48 plus 1 plus 1. But the question really should be, how much are we losing if we don't spend the money?
Correct.
Well, I have that question here on the heels of that from an online chat. Great segue. What could happen if we do not invest more in a transportation system?
Well, here's just to give you an idea on the port, and Debbie, Congressman Wasserman, Schultz, and myself, we've been working very closely with the county commission on this issue to expand Port Everglades because there's going to be a widening of the Panama Canal, which means they're going to be very, very large ships that are going to be bringing cargo up the coast. And if you don't have the depth and the width to bring those ships in, they're going to pass you by. And so Fort Lauderdale, which is really the biggest cargo port in Florida, are going to lose out a lot of business. And when we say a lot of business, it means thousands and thousands of jobs, and millions, billions. We're getting up there, billions of dollars. So 300 million sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but when you translate into what it means, it's relatively small.
Just if I can just add on to what Lois is saying, I had the privilege of traveling with Vice President Biden in January to the Panama Canal, and I know Mayor Sharief just got back from a similar trip, and we sat with the President of Panama and our delegation, who really said to us in no uncertain terms that any port in the country that did not dredge to 50 feet, or really in our case 48 plus 1, was really going to be left behind economically. And because of our proximity to Panama, because Miami is already at 50 feet, and we know that the post-Panamax ships are able to stop there, the next stop is Port Everglades. And what we don't want to have happen is for them to bypass us and head on up to Jacksonville or Savannah or other ports up the East Coast, losing out on all of that economic impact. Now, thankfully, we have been able to get the Army Corps of Engineers to sign off on 47 feet. The county is buying down the additional foot, but we are continuing in Congress, Congresswoman Frankel and our entire South Florida delegation, to fight to make sure that we can get that funding approved for the full 48 feet.
I believe we have Norman on the phone, joining us on the phone with a question about bus service. Good evening, Norman. Norman, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very much. I go back over close to 40 years in Broward County, and I see this is Broward. Yes, hello? Oh, hi.
Go ahead, Norman. We can hear you.
Yes, and in fact, I remember when Debbie was knocking on doors for Peter Deutsch. So we go back a long time. I am very simple in this, okay? She's smiling. She remembers, okay? A long time.
Very well. It's a long time.
Yeah, very simply, Broward County, all right? All I would like to see before I pass on to the next life is professional quality 24/7 bus service. We have the roadways, we have east-west, we have north-south. You see and I see who rides the buses every day, okay? And it's a shame the way they operate. And that's my feeling.
So I guess basically what he's asking is bus service.
So in order for us, I can go ahead and address that. So in order for, Norman, this is Mayor Sharief, in order for us to provide and just maintain the system and the service that we have right now at this time, we need an additional $382 million over the next 10 years. Broward County is trying to expand bus service as well as improve bus service routes. When we started on the downturn and during the recession, Broward County Commission had to make some tough decisions and cut bus services and really reduce and consolidate routes. At this point in time, based on our population growth, we know that that trend cannot continue, and so we're going to have to do something to extend bus routes and create a new revenue stream. At this time, BCT is averaging about a 34% collection on fare box, which is higher than Dade and Palm Beach counties, but it's not enough to sustain what is needed to move forward. So we have some decisions that we have to make as Broward County residents, and that is, are we willing to invest in our bus service to get it to where it needs to be, and are we willing to put forth that effort and absorb those costs? And that's going to be one of the bottom lines and the concerns for us in Broward, and it has been. We've had this discussion over and over again, and are we willing as taxpayers to put in what it needs to create the transportation infrastructure that we need and we want?
And Norman, the role of the MPO in this has been really interesting, I think, because working with the county through Broward County Transit, we're analyzing where those bus routes need to be and how to make the service on those routes more attractive to riders like yourself. So we're looking at routes on Oakland Park and University Drive and A1A. In fact, State Road 7, where the population of people needing to ride the bus to get to work or to shop is high, and BCT has responded with better buses, more rapid service, faster headways. I don't think that's the right term. Headway is, but I don't know if it's faster is the correct term, to make it possible for people to ride in a more comfortable environment and get where they need to go faster. So, as I said earlier, a bus is $250,000. I think it's even more when you consider making it an environmentally friendly bus. Right. So this is not a cheap solution.
Can I ask you a question, Mayor and Commissioner? Representing a district that goes from really the sawgrass, the sawgrass to the seagrass, and a district that has a lot of Western residents, at this point, it has never felt like bus service is a solution for us. To me, and you just named a whole bunch of north-south routes, but getting people from the west to the east in our county, and I bet it's the same up in Palm Beach County, Lois, is really culturally challenging. And by culture, I mean that we have to change the mindset in this community. And it's a decision that we have to make, a transportation decision that we have to make, to be willing to either change the way our buses look, to change the attitude about bus service and who rides buses. Because I'll be honest with you, out west, I just don't see folks deciding, even if you increase the bus service, to use buses to get from west to east.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question because I've got fabulous news for you.
Oh, excellent. I'm so glad to hear
well,
that.
first of all, with FDOT's assistance and the dollars that have been generated from the managed toll lanes, we have been able to put anywhere, I think it's about 25 now, articulated buses on the street for the 595 Express bus, which is the east to west route, as well as the north-south route going from West Broward down to Miami. Now, the good news is that we have from the Miramar Town Center and from C.B. Smith Park and Pembroke Pines, and that route is two of the most successful bus routes in the United States for transporting. And the people who ride that bus are doctors, lawyers going to Brickell Avenue, nurses going to Jackson Memorial Hospital. We have had such success with that route that when we had to move it to change some things at the Miramar Town Center, we were getting hundreds of emails saying, don't take our route away. So we have been able to successfully obtain the type of ridership that we need. At this point in time, that bus is so overcrowded on the west going down to the south that we are in the process of getting 2 new articulated buses from FDOT, which are at a cost of about $1.2 million each.
I'm sorry, I should know, but what's an articulated bus?
The articulated bus is the double bus. It's the bus that looks like the accordion to connect the two long sides. So we have.
I'll ask the dumb question.
No, that's okay. That's not a dumb question.
I thought that was called a double Dutch bus. But
no, the double Dutch is the two-tier. Right. The articulated looks like an accordion. Looks like you can bend the bus in half. Those buses are packed at from the 6 a.m. to the 7:30 a.m. route, so much so that we've had to request 2 more articulated buses. The second thing that I want to mention is that we have the Hollywood Hills Plaza bus, the Davie Road Extension bus, that the new location is going to begin in October the 13th, the Sunrise Westgate Square bus, and at the BB&T Center Park and Ride, we're full. And so we're waiting for buses to be made to accommodate the number of passengers that we're trying to transport. So
well, you promised good news, and that sounds fabulous.
Very good news.
I want to put a plug in for public transportation. I represent a district that runs from Palm Beach all the way down to Fort Lauderdale. I take the Tri-Rail every single day. And what I want to say is it becomes addicting. Yes. When you can get into a safe public transportation and sit and look at your iPad and not stress out about the
I was
cars.
going to say, look how relaxed she looks.
I mean,
that's Tri-Rail. That's what it does for you.
it's really-
I just want to remind folks that are joining us, we've got until 8 tonight where you've got a chance to ask any question you might have about Broward's transportation future. And you can do that in one of two ways. If you're joining us by phone, you'd like to ask a question, just press 0 at any time. You can also ask your question by going to our online chat at speakupbroward.org. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
But I wanted to say something that I think will be music to the ears of our commissioner and our mayor, which is a bill that I have filed in Congress as a separate bill, and which will eventually be an amendment I will file to the authorization of the highway bill if we ever get to it. And that would be to bring more money directly to the MPOs. Because right now, most of it's going to the states, dribbles down here and there. So we hope we can change that, have more local control.
Oh, we've got lots of good news at this table today. We've got Tina from Plantation who's got a question about bus service for the disabled. Tina, good evening.
Good evening. I have a niece who depends on using public transportation, and it's really a horrendous situation. She's frequently late to appointments, to doctor appointments. She can't even really depend on it to get to work. She's been passed by after waiting an hour for a bus, and worst of all, more than once, on 2 occasions, she's been robbed on the bus, and when she approached the bus driver was not interested at all. So sometimes I'm not even comfortable having her ride the bus, and it puts me in a difficult situation because it means that I have to transport her, and it's just not right. It's getting more expensive to use it, and definitely not improving.
Anybody want to take that?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, Tina, it sounds like you're having some difficulties, and we do apologize for that. The one thing that I can do is I would like to give you my office phone number so that we can put you in contact with the appropriate people to make the complaints and to get a resolution. We are very cognizant of the fact that we have many people out in Broward County who are disabled who use our transportation system, and most of the time we get it right. It sounds like you've had a difficult time, and I would love to have the opportunity to resolve that for you. So I'm going to go ahead. Is it okay if I give out my phone number? You can have my phone number to my office. Call me directly. It's 954-357-7008. That's 954-357-7008. I'm going to put you in touch with our transportation director, Mr. Chris Walton, and we're going to make sure that we take care of that.
We have a call from Lila, I believe her name is, with a comment about Tri-Rail. Good evening.
Hello? I'm sorry, are you talking with me?
Are you Lila?
Yes, Lilia, yes.
Lila. Okay, do you have a comment about Tri-Rail?
No, at this moment, I just give you a comment before, and I'm very opposite to transportation over wheels. The buses, it's okay, you had a good service, but with the rush hours when we are on the road, that nothing work. Nothing work, because in every 2 corners we have schools, school buses, and very terrible blocking people who are over wheels. So wheels won't work. No matter how much money you spend on buses, they won't work. Either or we have to have a train service from east to west, vice versa, or from north to south, vice versa. So we need transportation better than the one we have it right now. There's a train all the way at the east. We are living at the west, but the west we don't have nothing. If there is an accident on wheels, everyone is stuck on the roads. So we need different transportation from wheels.
So that comes up a lot. Folks that are concerned about the whole east to west travel, which you've already brought up. And there's also the mindset. Most people that live out west in the suburbs, you know, mom, dad, 2 cars, school, work, activities for the kids, etc. But we're also a population very interested in our environment, very interested in simplifying. Is it on the table where we will have better access east to west? Let's say dad works in downtown. Now we can go down to 1 car, so you're only having to own, fill up, and maintain 1 car. Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in South Florida. Don't use mass transportation. Don't use public transportation because it's the mindset that you're talking about of, you know, you get your car and that's your mode of transportation. But pollution, the traffic congestion, the wear and tear, the stress, you know, I mean, the efficiency. There, you know, we're never going to get rid of, I don't think, you know, not having any car. But there seems to be a huge problem with the whole east-west with these folks, and I'm also hearing problems as far as bus improvements.
Well, I think the caller was also talking about that for her, trains would be a lot better than buses. And I think if you ask people, if you gave up your car, what mode of transportation would you like? They would all say a train.
And she's wanting one from west to east.
And she's wanting one.
Yeah.
Well, we on the MPO, and I'm sure that other people involved in transportation have said, yes, that would be wonderful. But the cost of rail, light rail or heavy rail, is out of reach in most instances. Right. So what has happened nationally, and certainly in Broward County as well, is that you put better buses on the road. You have Wi-Fi in there. You serve coffee in there. You have reclining seats in there.
Well, he had me a coffee.
You have a different design on the bus. You increase the headways. You give them a pass to go beyond red lights. You give them acceleration lanes to move. You give them dedicated lanes to move people faster in more modern, appropriate buses. And those, I think the acronym is Bus Rapid Transit, and it's all over. And Broward County Transit is doing that. Ultimately, I think we're going to see a rail system in Broward, and probably some of us won't be here to see it, but it begins with the wave in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. It's a peanut operation at best. It really is. What is it, 2.7 miles, Barbara, or something like that? Yeah, at a cost of, I don't even want to say. But the idea is that a system starts with, it's organic.
Right.
The system starts someplace and it grows. And the idea is that eventually the wave goes to the airport and the seaport. And then it bends up on Griffin Road, riding up to University. And then it goes north and south from there. And it will take a long time. The proof source to make this happen, though, is ridership on bus rapid transit. When the bus systems understand and realize that people want to ride in comfort, and then you build up a ridership base where you can begin to justify studying rail.
I want to answer a call here. Melissa is on the phone with us with a question about the Highway Trust Fund.
Yes. Yes, hello.
Hi, Melissa. What's your question?
Yeah, hi. I read recently online that the Highway Fund that a couple of your panelists have talked about is going to be completely out of money in August or September of this year. So what, if anything, is the federal government going to do to fix the problem?
Well, Melissa, this is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We extended the Highway Transportation Fund until March. Really what we've been doing, unfortunately, as we've gotten closer, when we approach the expiration and the exhaustion of those funds, Congress passes a stopgap measure and we extend it for a shorter period of time than we really should, because transportation planning requires long-term investment and a look much further forward than 8 or 10 months. But unfortunately, we've not been able to get agreement. That Congress right now, the two sides are really far apart on what we think the best approach is to addressing the long-term funding needs of the Highway Fund. And so we've got to try to get some folks in there to concentrate on putting aside some very firmly held, dug-in positions and find a way to work together on this, because we're really being penny wise and pound foolish. I mean, just to give you an idea, of the impact, and I want to make sure that I get this right. Every dollar that we invest in public transportation generates about $4 in economic returns. And every $1 billion invested creates about 36,000 jobs. So by not doing this in a long-term way and really addressing what Congresswoman Frankel said is the reality, which is that this is a law of diminishing returns. You have increased miles, fuel efficiency in cars, which means that we're going longer on a gas tank, which is a good thing. It saves us money, but it ends up having us spend less money on gas, and less of that gas tax goes into the Highway Trust Fund.
We've got a caller, and I think this might be for you, Congresswoman Frankel. Lauren, about the impact of larger ships at the port. Do I have that right, Lauren?
Yes, I was wondering, I know that there's more ports and larger ships coming to Port Everglades. I'm wondering how that is going to impact truck and train traffic in our area and make congestion worse for drivers.
What was the question?
She wanted to know how it was going to impact traffic on the drivers. Is that what your question was, Lauren? How larger ships will impact traffic?
I don't know if she's still on the phone. Are you still there, Lauren? Yeah, I heard something about the traffic.
Okay, so I guess, you want me to take that one? Because I can.
Oh, if you understand the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Sounded like she was on speakerphone, so.
All right. So the first thing that the impact of larger ships coming into the port is not going to impact traffic on drivers, because we have a jewel at our port, which is called the Intermodal Transfer Container Facility, which we have just did the grand opening of. And that facility is going to allow us to take the cargo from those larger post-Panama Canal ships, put it on the railway, and get it out of Port Everglades at a faster rate than any other port. So we're ahead of the curve on that. Even though our dredging project is a little bit behind, we are ahead of the curve on that. So even as those ships are coming in now, we're utilizing our ICTF to move that cargo. So the answer to your question is no, the larger ships coming into Port Everglades will not impact traffic on our streets, but what it will do is provide more revenue generation through Port Everglades. The ships coming out of the Panama Canal right now are going to be, well, I won't say TEUs because I don't think anybody understands that out there, but what I will say is that the new ships are coming in at 4 to 5 times the tonnage of the old ships. And so what that means is that there's 4 to 5 times more revenue generation potential there for Broward County. And so this is a must for us. We must get the port dredged. We must go to 48+1.
Hold that thought. If you've just joined us and you want to be a part of this discussion, the future of the transportation here in Broward County, where definitely you are a big part of how and where this goes. 2 ways you can weigh in tonight. If you're joining us by phone and you'd like to ask a question, just press 0 at any time. You can also ask your question via our online chat by going to speakupbroward.org. Got to remind folks, anybody want to add to the mayor's thoughts?
I'm just going to throw out an extraneous thought.
Okay.
I think she did a great job answering that question.
I do too. We have this one question that seems to come up a lot. Let's see what your answer. The roads, the cyclists, pedestrians. Can't we all just get along? I have an online chat here. Are there plans to provide bike lanes that are separated from the roadway? This particular person was hit by a car in 2010 while riding my bike and don't want to be in that situation again. Nobody wants to be in that situation.
Sure, I'll start. I know Barbara will add to this. So the MPO has spearheaded a Complete Streets project. It's called Complete Streets, and it's a way of thinking about transportation on our streets to include all forms of transportation: bicycles, cars, pedestrians. So roads that are going to be, streets that are going to be redone, new streets that are going to be built, will be built with bike lanes. They'll be built with bigger sidewalks. Probably, I have to boast that I think one of the significant projects is in Hollywood, between the City Hall and the Florida East Coast Railroad tracks. The last part of Hollywood Boulevard that was never remodeled will be a Complete Streets demonstration project funded by the MPO, $7 million grant. And this project, when it was introduced to the public, was received with wild acclaim. And I'm talking about residents on either side of Hollywood Boulevard and the business community who said, this is fantastic. You're going to address our parking problem. You're going to provide a safe route for bicyclists. You're going to improve the landscaping. Our sidewalks are going to be deeper. We'll invest. We'll invest. And I don't remember which one of you, I think it might have been you, Barbara, talked about, or Debbie, the importance of thinking about all these improvements and its impact on economic development. This is really where we're not thinking of the benefit, but all the benefit of complete streets and the port and so forth are economic. So the direct answer to the question is the complete streets concept's been adopted by, I think, every city in Broward County and Broward County, and you're going to see bike lanes popping up everywhere where they haven't been before.
And just to add to that, you know, these changes do not occur overnight. We do not have an unlimited funding source. And we have been setting aside money on a very consistent basis to make these improvements. But this whole forum, this MPO, Broward Speaks Up, we're asking you, are you willing as taxpayers of Broward County to invest in our transportation infrastructure to get it to where it needs to be? In 10 years, we'll be at a $382 million deficit. If you want more of what you need to accommodate the 1.85 million and growing population that we have now, we need an additional 682 million to make that happen. And 7 million is what we've got right now to start this project. And I wanted to put that out there because I want everyone who's listening to this to understand that we are going to have to, at some point in time, make an investment in our transportation infrastructure. Are you willing to do that?
Can I?
Well, I want to add something to what you just said.
Yes, me too.
So your population, how many drivers would you say you have on the road here in Broward County?
Out of the 1.85 million, it's estimated that 90% of the people in Broward County are in their cars.
So the average person spends 38 hours a year stuck in traffic. So multiply that out. Multiply 1 million times 38. You get 38 million hours. Just think about that in terms of the economy.
Correct.
Right there.
So, and just to even add on to that, boil it down to a little bit more both pragmatic and human terms. If we want to be a world-class community, you know, South Florida is now a region. We are an international region. We're the gateway to Latin America. We're a gateway to much of the world. I mean, this is a decision. The mayor is absolutely right. We can either remain, you know, stuck in between the sleepy little community that we used to be and the cosmopolitan metropolis that we yearn to be, and never quite get there unless we make a decision as a region to invest in the infrastructure necessary, which we know will create jobs, we know will kick our economy into even higher gear, and then, and I'm sure we'll talk about all aboard Florida, but then with the likely development of all aboard Florida being able to quickly get folks from Central Florida down to South Florida, and let's say you're going to Disney World with your family, and you're a tourist and you come here to Florida, you know, how often are you choosing to also spend money and come down to South Florida? Hardly ever, because it's a pain to get here. Now that we're going to have an easier time getting folks here, when they're here, we need to move them around efficiently.
Well, and that's a great segue to this question that I have here for you. How much public money is being used for All Aboard Florida?
Well, there's almost no public money being used for All Aboard Florida. All Aboard Florida is a fully privately funded transportation mechanism. It's using the existing rail lines, the FEC rail lines, and it's going to be privately funded. We have had an opportunity to have the Transportation Department at the federal level provide some incidental funding to make sure that planning and other and other investments are available. But we also have some kinks to iron out. I know in Congresswoman Frankel's district, she's got one side of town that would benefit tremendously. The other side of her district is a little bit frustrated, and we're working through those. And thankfully, all aboard Florida folks have agreed to fully fund the quiet zones, so we've taken off the table how to pay for those. But look, if we can get folks off the roads, I mean, just speaking as a mom with younger kids, When I'm in Miami, and I am trying to get, and I know I have one more thing to go to for work later on in the evening, and I'm trying to get home so I can have dinner with my husband and kids, and then go back out to work. If I spend the kind of time that Congresswoman Frankel just mentioned stuck in my car, the chances of my spending time with my kids in between those two appointments are slim to none. And that matters too. So we're wasting precious time, and we're being penny wise and pound foolish.
We've got Karen from Hollywood who's posing the question about environmental issues with dredging. Are you there, Karen?
Yes, I was just wondering, they mentioned dredging for Port Everglades to how many more feet, and I was wondering if there are any environmental impacts to our coastline. I already know we're losing our coastline. I know A1A had an issue, and they were, rebuilding and all of that. So are there any environmental impacts with dredging?
That's a great question.
Yes. Well, it's an excellent question, and the answer is yes, there are, and there will be. But I think every one of us can tell you that before the federal government allows dredging to go forward, the project has to go through an extensive evaluation in terms of environmental impact. In fact, we are now, the mayor would probably tell you we're on our 18th year of study.
Well, we're finishing now.
We're getting to the finish line.
To the finish line.
It is a question of balancing. There's no question that our natural resources here in South Florida is a huge part of our economy also, and a part of who we are. And so there's a very, very careful balance between the dredging which will lead to tremendous economic activity and jobs here, and also preserving your precious resources. So any environmental impacts will have to be offset by the county, and which you could probably talk about.
Right. I wanted to kind of give her a little bit more specifics, because this has been one of those issues that there has been a lot of misinformation given in the public. So here's where we're at in Broward County. In order to dredge the port, we have 16 acres worth of what we call mitigation to do, which is to replace the Melaleuca, to replace all of the seagrass in the area before, and to make sure that we maintain the protective, the environment the way that it needs to be done. That has to occur before any dredging occurs. So we're not just going in, dredging, and then thinking about the environmental impacts later. Part of the stall in terms of us getting the Army Corps of Engineers report is that we did have an environmental report that came back that required us to do a little bit more mitigation. And so at this point in time, we finished that. We're on our way to mitigating before the dredging process occurs. And so we're going to minimize any environmental impacts it may have. And so whenever you look at dredging a port, your benefits must far outweigh the risk. And so at this point in time, what we're saying as a county is that the economic benefits to job creation and revenue potential is so far greater than the risk of us mitigating to dredge our port, that it would be a loss for us all if we didn't do it. And so that's where we're at right now.
I think it's important we care a lot about our environment in this community, and we have a particularly sensitive coral reef right off the coast of Port Everglades, right off the coast of Port Everglades, that is also part of this environmental mitigation project. Congresswoman Frankel and myself and our staffs have worked with the relevant environmental agencies to ensure that that everyone has been at the table to sign off and agree with the county on the kind of mitigation that would have to be done before any of this progresses. And that was really important because, at the same time that this is a huge benefit economically for us going in the future, we also know the benefits of our coral reef and the tourism that it brings. And if you destroy that coral reef and we don't have an opportunity to make sure that tourists can come and snorkel and do all the relevant, wonderful things that we know our visitors do, then that's a problem too.
If you're joining us by phone, don't forget, press 0 if there's a question that you'd like to ask. I've got here on the online chat, I'm going to read this verbatim from Peter. It says, yes, 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 let's invest. He sounds like a cheerleader. How can we support you in getting the funds needed? So I've got somebody who's saying, okay, it all sounds great. I mean, let's face it. We've got water on one side, so unless part of the public transportation includes boats, canoes, gondolas, and kayaks, you know, the public transportation has nowhere to go but up. It's going to be something that we're just going to have to operate with. It's you mentioned it before. It's a mindset. Looks like we're headed in that direction. How do we get there?
Well, and I don't want to dominate the discussion, but I want to follow up because we didn't talk about the wave enough. When I first was elected to Congress, I represented downtown Fort Lauderdale. Now Congresswoman Frankel does, and we've worked together, me in the beginning part of the decade and since, and Congresswoman Frankel since she joined Congress, to make sure that we had the majority of those funds for that streetcar covered by the federal government. This is a really important public-private partnership. It's important to note that downtown business owners have voted to actually tax themselves in order to provide funding for this. And if you've been to communities like Portland, Oregon, or San Francisco, or Denver, Colorado, and even Charlotte, North Carolina, you've seen a streetcar system that has developed that has gotten people to decide to get out of their cars. Mm-hmm. It seems, unbelievable that would be a decision that folks would make here. But if we start to establish that streetcar downtown, and then spread it over the next 20 years, really, out to the west, and we have an easy way for people to move back and forth and not get in their car, then that's the kind of investment that we can make. But it's going to require resources. Correct.
And so here in Broward County, we've had 3 ideas thrown out there, and nothing is concrete at this point in terms of where we're going. But there was a suggestion made that based on the amount of money that we needed to improve our bus system, improve our transportation system, that there be a possibility of a 2-cent transportation tax, okay, for Broward County. The other one was that there is a special taxing unit for transportation on the ad valorem property taxes. And then the third was an increase in bus fares to kind of offset some of the maintenance costs that we need. Those are the 3 options that have been placed out there on the table. So at some point in time, there will have to be a vote on that. If that makes it to the ballot. I received a call, I'm not sure if anybody else did. I got a transportation robocall, some type of a electronic call that asked me to press buttons if I thought I'd be interested in a 2-cent sales tax. And so they were doing some kind of a survey. I'm not sure what the result of that was, but I can tell you that there are some options out there for funding transportation. The question is that we as residents of Broward County are going to have to come together and figure out what we're going to have to do.
And I think the significance of your conversation is that that's what the MPO is for, to work with the county and our colleagues and partners in Washington to determine what resources are available for us, and the gap between what we know we can fund and what people are saying they want is what we have to fill. And the significance of what we're doing with this conference today, this telephone conference, and Speak Up Broward is for people to tell us what they want and they're willing to pay for. We know we can't do everything, but the input is essential. The public input to this process is essential. So for those of you who think that bike lanes are high priority, then you need to make sure that when it comes time to a vote, that bike lanes are included to the extent that you like them to be included. For those of you who want better bus service, you need to make sure that all the agencies that are planning for that have listened to you and heard from you so that you get something for your money. This is a unique process that we're going through right now. No one else in the country has done this before, in this venue. And I think we're going to learn a lot from it. We spent over an hour today at the MPO on the 2040 transportation plan. That's what this is. If we voted tomorrow, you wouldn't see any improvements for many years, but at least we would know we're willing to make the investment.
For the record, this was all my idea. I just thought I'd have you know that.
First of all, I want to congratulate Broward County for really stepping up to the plate and really being advanced. I want to add a point more on the macro level, which is, every day you can't help but you turn on your television and you see about a security threat, ISIS now, of course, and I think we have to make sure that everybody understands that the best way for this country to be secure, that doesn't mean, we need to deal with ISIS, but the number one top way to be secure is first to be economically secure. Because if we lose our economic security, then we'll be a very, very weak country. And it just still astonishes me that we have a Congress that was willing to spend $3 trillion on a foolish war in Iraq, and we can't get these same people to fund the Highway Trust Fund, which is a much better way to keep us secure. So, to the caller who said, what can he do? Really, citizens can do a lot by whether it's personal lobbying, speaking up, working through organizations, associations they're involved with, to make it clear to the people who, write the laws, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level, that this is important to them.
Oh, I hope, Roderick, you're still there. You have a question regarding the Easy Card. Hopefully you've been patient with us. Are you still there, Roderick?
Yes, I'm here.
What's your question?
My question is in regards to in regards to like an Easy Card system, which is utilized with Miami-Dade Transit and the Tri-Rail. I think it would be very beneficial for Broward County to adopt that because, I think it's about making it easy for commuters to utilize the system as well. You want to make it a seamless transition, and it's kind of difficult doing that when you're coming to Broward County because they don't necessarily have that, and I think it would just be easier if they utilized the Easy Card system and be able to reload money from the convenience of your home or the internet and things like that. I think that would be very beneficial.
Thank you, Roderick. Well, Broward County has been looking into the Easy Card system. As a matter of fact, last year we had a meeting in regards to that, and we met with Miami-Dade as well as Palm Beach about a seamless transportation, acceptable form of transportation between our bus systems for the Tri-County area. As you know, everything comes with a cost. And so at this time, we have looked into the Easy Card system. We have not made a determination as to whether or not it's feasible for Broward County to implement that at this time. And so we too see the value in an Easy Card system. At this point in time, it's about funding.
Anybody want to add to that? It all comes down
I use an Easy Card on the Tri-Rail.
Because it's the Tri-Rail.
Right.
All right.
It's about,
but one thing
part
that
of it is about tracking the revenue that's generated from
I understand your point. I understand his point too, which
Right.
is it really, I'll tell you, if you ever went to get on a bus where you get on the bus and they won't take coins, because it's a system that runs on a card. So it goes both ways.
Right.
I got one quick question, whoever
Yeah.
wants to answer it. Extended services, that's something that also seems to come up a lot. When there's events, you live out here in Coral Springs, you want to go to the big beach bash over in Fort Lauderdale. Is that on the table as well? Extending services, there's students that have night classes, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, this is a forum where we have to be honest. So I'm going to take the question and I'm going to be honest. At this point in time, we've had that question come up on numerous occasions about extending services. The problem at this time is about funding. Now, in terms of our college areas, we are putting in more bus routes. That's why we put in the Davie and the BCC route. We've added to that route. We're consolidating routes to make it easier to do that. We're not extending at this time. I can tell you that that has been a discussion, but it all comes down to funding. And right now, we're trying to extend bus services during peak hours where transportation is needed to get to and from work, to and from school. And so as far as events, that hasn't taken its place in terms of our priority yet on our list, because we're really trying to restore levels for peak hours of transportation to and from work.
So basically, it's all about, we're back to the funding. So people have got to come up with ideas, I guess.
I feel like I should be giving out a 1-800 number for them to contribute. So if you'd like to, you can dial 954-357 and put, credit card number in.
If you think about it, though, Barbara, it's really kind of remarkable and worth celebrating that there is a demand for more service. And it's hard to keep up with the demand. And the demand is in part because because we're a growing urban area of 7 million people plus who need to get places, and we've teased our way out of the car now. And this is one of the unintended consequences of all of our past efforts.
Okay, so I want to make some suggestions.
Yeah, I've got
Because
one
it's not just, because you got to take a long-range look at this. And first of all, I think it sounds like you're doing a fabulous job. And she's also trying to keep money in the pockets of her constituents. So she's not going to take everybody's hard-earned money to put in transportation. So taking a long-range view, what do we need to do to keep the country economically secure, have the money to put in transportation? And there's a real philosophical debate in the Congress. But let me just say a few things. I think we should raise the minimum wage. I think we should educate our children. I think we should invest more in infrastructure, get people back to work, and you're going to have more money that way.
And in 25 days, everyone needs to vote.
Right. Yes.
Vote on your priorities on November 4th.
All right, we thank you all. Thank you all for, they could sit here all night, and we probably will, but we want to thank all of you for joining us in this very important discussion about the future of transportation in our very growing community. You are such a huge part of the effort in making Broward County's transportation system effective and beneficial to residents, businesses, tourists. Our live chat and our phone lines are now closed. So if you were not able to get your question or your comment in tonight, we still want to hear from you. They all want to hear from you. You can go to our website at speakupbroward.org or call this number, 954-641-8141. That's aside from the number that the mayor gave us. And leave your question right there on our message line. Now, our very last Let's Talk Transportation eTownHall event is on Wednesday, October 15th. Same time, 7 p.m. We would love to have you join us with 4 new panelists offering more insight and information, obviously, and another chance for you to have your comments and your questions addressed. Don't forget about our interactive online survey for a chance at that $500 prize. Visit speakupbroward.org. On behalf of this very informative, very educational, very colorful, wonderful panel that I have enjoyed so much this evening, thank you and have a great one.